Ivor Perl, British Empire Medal, BEM,
Right.
to the studio. I'm going to let you tell some of your story, if you don't mind.
I wish I could say it's a pleasure to be here. It is a pleasure, but obviously the subject is not a pleasure. But I'm honoured to be invited to this morning, especially as tomorrow I'll be quite heavily involved in the Holocaust Memorial Day itself.
Yes. You are Hungarian.
I'm originally Hungarian.
By descent.
So as a Hungarian Jew, I think the tragedy we went through is double-fold, because the Hungarian government was the Axis power of Germany, which is another default with the Germans.
Yeah.
Now, while Hungary was fighting with the Germans, normally, although we suffered from anti-Semitism an awful lot, but we knew we were Jews, and our friends were Gentiles. We played with each other. They called us dirty Jew. Well, we accepted that. Until, of course, Admiral Halsey. People might be surprised to hear that the ruler of Hungary, which is a landlocked country, had an admiral as a leader, could see that the war was over and wanted to make peace overtures to the Americans. And once the Germans, couldn't say occupied because the German troops were there all the time, took over Hungary literally within 4 months, the whole Jewish population was sort of taken away.
You were taken to a ghetto.
We were taken to a ghetto
you
first.
You are one of a family of 11.
11. A mother, father, 5 brothers, 4 sisters.
5 brothers and 4 sisters. You were taken to a ghetto, and then
were taken. Well, the people keep on saying, how did you allow that to happen? Of course, I'm a 12-year-old work. I can only tell you what actually I thought and heard. That things were so gradual that any time you said, well, we were harassed as Jews, you said, well, if you said you can't go out at night, not too bad. Then you can't go to certain street, we'll manage. Gradually, the trap got tighter and tighter.
Were you together as a family in the ghetto?
That's a very good question. No, because the younger people, agile young people of Jews, were allied, sort of taken to called the Munkatábor, the labor battalion, working for the Hungarian army. So I remember that my family, that we ended up in Auschwitz, my mother, 4 sisters, and 2 of my brothers.
In Auschwitz?
In Auschwitz itself.
Now, I read an account yesterday, and it reduced me rather to a bit of a mess. You are a man who has been taken to Auschwitz with your family by train.
Well, I'm pleased to say as a man, but I was 12 years old.
You were 12 years old?
12 years and 2 months when I was taken to Auschwitz.
What's it like to arrive at Auschwitz?
Well, horrendous. I'm talking about a 4-day journey in a cattle truck. There were 70 to 80 people in all the cattle truck, which I'm saying, I don't know what to say because most things are so obvious and known by now, so I might repeat myself again. But there were 70, 80 people in the truck, 2 buckets on one side, 2 buckets on the other side. One was for ablution and the other one was for water. And coming from a very Orthodox family, the idea of living like that, especially with all the women and everything together, was horrendous.
4 days?
For 4 days.
You arrive?
We arrived.
They open?
Well, I don't know how much time I've got to tell you the story.
We have 6 minutes left.
That, of course, soon as the train arrived at Auschwitz, people kept on walking around, any sick people on board. So normally what you would say, even if there wasn't any, yes, please, there are sick people on here,
yes,
thinking the doors will be opened quickly. But needless to say, the more we shouted, the more the door kept on being shut, until somebody said, don't say there are any sick people on board. Yeah. Anyway, the doors opened up, and I fell off the train. And the scene that confronted me is, needless to say, horrendous, that, women, children one side, able-bodied young ones, and men on the other side. Well, I had a terrible stomach ache. Now, fortunately, we learned, we were very, very religious. And the Talmud that you learned was in Yiddish, which is very, very akin to German. And the Polish Jews who were there already much before us, they spoke Yiddish mainly. So when we arrived at Auschwitz itself, which we didn't know where we arrived, we heard someone shouting from the railway line. He said, children must say, if they're asked how old you are, they must say they're 16. And any food that you say, don't say food, eat it all up, because we never knew how long we were on the train. I heard it, but I didn't take any notice of it. And needless to say, once we started marching, women and children one side, I was on the other side, and I started running over to my mother and younger children. And she said, what are you doing here? Go back to your brother. I said, Mum, please let me come with you. No, I want to come with you. She said, no, you go back to your brother. But of course, the luxury of arguing, that's one thing you didn't have in those days.
So you left?
I left my
left
mother,
your mother
and sisters on one side.
And did you see them again?
I never saw them again.
No.
But even myself, as I started marching, you could see an officer, German officer, white glove pointing left and right. No, of course, I don't know if people did know what happened, but I, as a child, just saw the scene. I didn't know what was going on. And suddenly, as he confronted the officer, he stops and he says, how old are you? Well, obviously. Fortunately, I just automatically said 16, Jackson.
Because this is what the Polish Jews had said.
Exactly.
To you. So,
Now,
and who was this man?
Fortunately, we said it was Dr. Mengele, but I mean, name doesn't mean anything. I don't know, it could have been any officer, a German officer.
Yeah.
And nowadays, people, especially when I give talks in schools about the Holocaust, my experiences, they keep on saying about obesity with children. Now, I don't think I was obese, but certainly I was bigger.
You're a big lad.
Big lad for my age. Now, that saved me. Because Helpful, yes.
Yeah, helpful.
And without that, I wouldn't have been here to tell the tale.
You, somehow, you and your brother survived Auschwitz. I believe that you were moved to Allach.
To Allach, which is a satellite camp of Dachau.
Okay, so that's a satellite.
In Bavaria, in Germany.
Yeah. Well, I visited.
Did you really?
I did. I was drawn very much to it. I played a tennis tournament in Munich, and we were.
That's right. Which is near Munich. Dachau was very, very, very close to Munich.
I requested to go and visit, and it's still one of the most profoundly moving days of my life. I remember going to the crematorium across the water and seeing this beautiful, clear, lovely water, and yet the contrast between that and what's actually happened here was difficult for me. May I ask, have you returned to any of these?
That's a very good question,
places?
Andrew. That I found the way to get on with life. Was fortunate enough to have been brought over to England by the forerunner of Jewish care, who have looked after me, and I'm still helping me an awful lot. You can't sort of thank her enough. And sorry, I lost my track. You'll have to.
I wondered whether you had visited or revisited.
Oh yes. Well, I didn't want to have anything to do with the Holocaust in my past. I thought the best way forward is get up, dust yourself down, and get on with life. But of course, eventually events caught up with you. You had to go and talk about it. I had a phone call once from Germany. I said, he's a judge, a German judge. I said, I understand you're Hungarian Jew. I said, there is. We're having a trial about a German who's prepared, Oscar Groening, who's prepared to talk about his experiences in Auschwitz itself. And I, as a survivor from Hungary, would I be prepared to go and be a witness? I said, I'm prepared to talk about it and help you, but I will not go to Germany.
No.
He said, no problem, you understand. He said, but it's a shame that you can't come here, you can't come to Germany, excuse me, because it's possibly be the last time that somebody will be prepared to agree to go on trial as an SS officer. And I said, well, I'm afraid I don't think I'll be able to do it.
No.
But anyway, I went home and mentioned it to my children, and they said, Dad, you know what? I know as much as you feel as though you can't make it, I think it's important that you do go.
Right, so they advised
Which I did eventually, end up going to
Where did you
this.
settle in England? Did you have a choice as to where you went? After?
Yes, no, very much so. I'm afraid we haven't got much time to tell you that.
Why did you come here?
But that's a very, very good question. After we were liberated by the Americans, of course, the world could see what happened to us. All the world felt sorry for us. Until then, nobody wanted to know. Anyway, and there was a organization, a Zionist organization in the camp itself that said that people can go back wherever they want to, but children, if they've got no parents left, they can only go to one place, which is Palestine. Well, of course, on the British mandates, and they said, no way can you go there. So they said, where else can we go? So we could have gone to England, America, Australia. So we went to the rabbi, which is the only place that a 13-year-old boy, my brother was 15 and he was alive. And he said, look, as far as he's concerned, any country that takes you in, at the moment, you got to go. It doesn't matter who, where or when. And the first transport left from Germany went to England.
Yeah.
And I must say that when I arrived in England, I thought I've arrived in heaven, literally. So the choice.
When you look at England now, and you hear our political debates, our divisions, our polarizations, you listen to LBC, you hear our arguments. What do you think?
Do you know something, Andrew? I was hoping that politics will be kept out of this. But I felt, as I mentioned to you, when I came to England, I couldn't believe myself. But it's not the England which I came to. That's all I can say.
Oops! Don't smash our mic. That's very interesting.
So I'm saying it's not England that I remember.
So your message would be, having been through everything that you have and observed everything you have, and now I believe you're 87 next month.
88.
What's your message?
Well, the message which I keep saying to boys when I go giving talks about my experiences, that as far as I can see, having experienced all that hatred and everything in life, that I think, including marriage, you won't get a lot further with love than with hate.
All right. Well, that's a lovely message. Your eldest brother, before I let you go, Ivor, your eldest brother, you were the only two to survive.
So, yes, he was 2 years older than me. He died about 15 years ago. Okay. But if I may just say just one more thing, that's very relevant, because somehow or other, while my brother survived, although I've lost all my family and everything, while we were together, somehow or other, with the unity, a bond. I think it's when he died. I thought of it. I remember putting the shovel on the coffin. I thought of doing it not only for him, but for my family as well.
Read the story of Ivor Perl, or as he was born,
Isaac Perlmutter.
Isaac Perlmutter.
Yeah.
It's been fascinating to read your story. It's been a delight to talk with you. Are you still playing golf?
No.
Not anymore. Those days are gone.
No, funny enough, are we off the air now?
No, we are on air.
Oh, we're on air. No. I used to be doing an awful lot of sport, which I loved. But my wife had dementia about 6 years ago, and one reads the book about I lost the plot. It's very, very true. I seem to have lost everything. That all the enjoyment that you used to have just fell apart. Right. Golf, football, tennis.
Oh yeah, any good?
No, it wasn't quite as good as you, but I still enjoyed it.
Very nice to meet you, Ivor.
Same here.
Enjoy the day, if that's what it is. Endure or enjoy, whatever.
Thank you.
Thinking about you
Thank
tomorrow.
You for having me.
Ivor Perl is a member of Jewish Care's Holocaust Survivors Centre, which supports over 500 people every year, offering social, practical and therapeutic support to those who were victims of Nazi persecution. That is the Jewish Care's Holocaust Survivors Centre. Ivor, thank you.